All right. So I first went to Pelee with OFNC, and this year I'm helping lead a trip to Pelee. So there's some nice symmetry there. And I put together this presentation mostly for myself to remind myself of all the things I want to think about and prepare before the trip. So start off with some ways to get yourself ready for Pelee. And don't worry, there's not actually very much text in the presentation, just a couple of pages at the front. If you know your local birds, and if you've been going to Ken Allison's recent 6-part series on local bird songs, then it's really going to help you when you get to Pelee, because you'll hear those sounds that you don't know. And those are the rare birds you want to see, or the new birds. Cell coverage at Pelee is terrible. So download offline maps, download Parks Canada app, and in it, there's some offline pages that I recommend downloading. And anything else you might want to download or have on hand, do it ahead of time. If you're a serious lister, download a checklist of target species specifically for May for Pelee from eBird ahead of time. And if anyone wants to do that together, we can do that during the question and answer session. I forgot to check on the status. There is a Discord for Pelee. I don't know if the old WhatsApp is still running, and there's certainly eBird alerts do work for Pelee. So set that all up ahead of time before you go. And if you're not traveling with OFNC, this is the most valuable thing to get from this whole presentation. An annual pass will let you skip the 6 a.m. lineup at the front gate. And yes, in the first 2 weeks of May, there is a lineup at the front gate. You're still 10 kilometers from the parking lot, and there's a lineup. So, but this year there's the Canada Strong Pass, so I'm not sure how that affects everything. So maybe call before going ahead. So it can be stressful going there for the first time if you're taking it really seriously. So let's remove the stress. So you did download those maps I just mentioned, right? There are ticks and there are poison ivy, but they're both easy to avoid. Wear long pants, stay on the trail. Don't sit down no matter how attractive that moss-covered log looks. And maybe take some bug spray.
Derek, are you supposed to have half of your screen green with a little staircase going down?
Staircase?
Yeah, I'm seeing the right half of your screen is completely green.
Wow.
Is anybody else having that problem? There, it's back.
It's back?
Yep, it's fine.
Okay, let me know if that happens again. All I did was move ahead and back.
Okay.
There are no staircases in this presentation. So the second most important thing to think about is clothing. If you've never been to Pelee, you will be stunned at how much the temperature changes. If you're at the tip at dawn, and we'll talk more about the tip, you may need gloves and a toque and a heavy jacket. And by noon, it may be 25 degrees and everybody is sweating and drinking a lot of water. Bring rain gear. It is going to rain at some point. Other things are pretty obvious. Water and a snack. Always bring them. There are really nice bathrooms at the visitor center and really sketchy ones at the tip. So plan accordingly. And if you're still feeling stressed, even a bad day at Pelee is probably a great day of birding. All right, this is, I think, the last page of text. So we're going to talk a little bit about ethics and conservation. Stay on the trail, no playback or fishing, no feeding the birds, and no flipping rocks or logs. That one's for the herpers. I don't mind doing any of that stuff. Don't quote me, but I may have done all of that stuff in NCC property where there's very little pressure on the animals. But we're going to look at a map and see why there's a tremendous amount of pressure on the habitat and animals at Pelee. So the rules matter there more than anywhere else. And the wardens will enforce the rules quite aggressively. Not mean, but very assertively. No, I lied. One more brief text page. So why do we go to Pelee in May? Because after all, most of us live in Ottawa, and Ottawa is fantastic for birding in May. Well, Pelee is probably the best spot to see warblers and songbirds in North America in May, especially the first 2 weeks of May. We're going to talk about migration, water barriers, and latitude. The type of forest is different than we have here. And the result of all that is there are 41 species of warblers and hundreds of other species, plus plants, insects, herbs, and lichen. And the behavior of those birds is awesome. So let's take a brief look at Google Maps. And this should show us why Pelee is so awesome. So here's Pelee Provincial Park in the center of the screen. It's lovely. If we zoom out, we see that there's a 300-kilometer long water barrier that makes it, and songbirds songbirds struggle flying over water. They do it, but they don't want to. Raptors hate flying over water other than eagles and osprey. So raptors are going to move along the shoreline. They're going to take the long way around, but songbirds need to get to the nesting ground as fast as possible. So they're going to go straight from the US to the closest point of land. And if we look at this map, we can see that they can island hop directly to Pelee. And after they leave Pelee Island, the first point of land they can see is this 15-kilometer peninsula jutting out into the lake. So they are going to alter their course and head for it. So Pelee is going to collect birds from a very wide range and funnel them into a very narrow piece of land. And if you look at a paper map of Pelee, it looks like a great big park. But if we look at the satellite image, you can see along the left, there are trees and land, but 80% or more of the park is marshland, and that's only good for a few species of bird. So all those birds that have just funneled together, aiming for the tip, have very narrow range of land to land in. So we're going to see a very high density of birds. Oh, since I'm here, let's talk really briefly about the tip. The tip is fascinating. This sandbar can be submerged or it can be solid and walkable, depending on the year and the winter and how much sand Lake Erie threw up. Some years it's 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers long, but lately mostly it's been a few meters long, very tiny. If it's very tiny, that means all the shorebirds have to be right here, which makes them very easy to see. All right, back to the presentation. So the birds are migrating to the north and they're across the water, and they're migrating to the northeast along the shoreline. And they're getting around the water barrier as fast as they can through Pelee Provincial Park. And latitude is also a factor. Pelee is so far south that it's at the same latitude as Barcelona or Northern California. It is much warmer than Ottawa. So there are species that will breed there that won't breed here. And so there's a funneling effect to bring a wide variety of migrants in. And it's a very different geography from what we have and different climate from what we have here in the Carolinian forest, which has different plants and animals than we have, which means the breeding birds are different. So the behavior of all those funneled hungry birds that have just crossed 100 kilometers of water is very different than what you see on the breeding grounds. For example, how about a Lincoln sparrow as part of a flock of Lincoln sparrows and indigo buntings hanging out on the lawn at the camp? Or a Blackburnian warbler walking through the grass at people's feet at the visitor center. This bird passed between my feet. Woodcock. This is a crepuscular bird. We don't normally see it in the daylight, but when they're landing, they will feed in the daylight a few feet from the trail. So you get views of things that you just don't see very often in Ottawa. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about the trails, some of the trails. There's too many trails to cover in an hour. So I'll talk about some of the high points. This is going to start at the south and work our way north. So at the tip, this is what everyone thinks about when they think of Pelee. And everybody should go there once and see the dawn. It is spectacular seeing the sunrise over Lake Erie and seeing the birds streaming in the first 2 weeks of May. And sometimes they stream back out in a rare phenomenon known as reverse migration. Sometimes the birds come in and realize they've overshot or they don't like the weather and decide to go backwards. And so there'll be sometimes hundreds or thousands of birds flying south off the tip of Pelee at dawn in the first 2 weeks of May. It's spectacular, especially if you have good eyesight. I don't, so it's not really a thing for me. Also, at the tip is a great spot for, oh yeah, I was gonna ask, does anyone know what this bird is? Feel free to unmute yourself or answer in the chat.
Summer tanager.
Excellent. This is a summer tanager. This is an immature male. And well, John obviously ID'd it, but for the rest of us, more than one tanager can get that yellow, but you see the wings are pale and not black like a scarlet tanager's would be. And the beak is not only not yellow, but it's enormous, even for a tanager. So that's a canopy bird or a deep forest bird. It is not an out in the open bird. But at the tip, when it comes down in the morning, you can sometimes, if the leaves aren't out, you can get spectacular photos. Here's another canopy bird, cerulean warbler. You can get them at Murphy's Point, but they're really hard to see because they're in the canopy of mature forest. But at Pelee, you can see them at eye level and sometimes even ground level. So people will take the tram. Oh yeah, let's talk about the tram. At 6 a.m., there is a tram from the parking lot at the visitor center for the last few kilometers to the tip. And it is full at 6 a.m. In fact, there's usually a secret tram that goes at 5:30. They usually send one out as soon as it's full. So if you're going in a group, if you're going with OFNC in a group, we'll rush you to the tram as early as possible. And it may be worth actually walking to the tip instead of taking the tram, depending on how many people that were there. Like I would not take the tram on a weekend. It's just, that would be just a nightmare. But at the tip, it doesn't look like there's a lot of trails, but there are seasonal trails that are only permitted during May. They're marked with orange flags. They're easy to follow. And if a trail is marked off, we do not go on it. Then if you walk north, you come to the Woodland Nature Trail. You can see it in the bottom left. It's on the bottom left of the screen, but on the bottom right of the map. And it is half forest with a high canopy and a low and lots of undergrowth like May apple and things like that, very low. So you get 2 layers of birds passing through. But the part that is the easternmost part is entirely swamp. And that is where the protonotary warblers breed. They're a cavity nester. They breed in natural cavities, and the park does put out little bird boxes for them as well. So it's pretty easy to find where they're breeding. And they are spectacular. And you would think that in the shadows of a dark swamp, they would not look so pretty, but they are stunning. And their color is probably a response to that dark habitat. That golden color just glows against the dark water, the dark tannins of the swamp water. This is a must-do trail. I think this is more entertaining than the tip. You'll get large flocks of mixed warblers and come up with a high warbler count on the Woodland Nature Trail, but the protonotary warblers are the high point. Then on the, see circled on the left side, there is a path from the tip all the way up the west side, and it's a beach. And this gets into some of what, despite the fact that Pelee is very narrow and not a very big park, it has a spectacular variety of habitats. We were just looking at a swamp. and some dry land. And now we're looking at really dry land. It is sandy on the west coast. It is juniper, and it is cactus, prickly pear cactus. Native to Ontario, spectacular to look at, terrible to touch. And it attracts different birds than the other paths. I've seen a lot of thrushes there, certain warblers, Canada warblers. Let's see, this beautiful warbler. Does anyone know what this is? This is one of the rarest warblers in Canada. And as far as I know, there's only been one in Ottawa in the past decade. And it was here for 2 days. Any guesses?
Kirtland's.
Kirtland's. Excellent.
Yes. So Heather, it's Kirtland with a T, not a K. It's not Kirkland. Just FYI for people.
But if Costco were to sponsor it, it then would be Kirkland's. However, it's Kirtland's. This appears to be a female, as there is no black in the lower between the eye and the beak. This is a huge warbler, and I've seen 4 of them at Pelee, all on the West Beach path. So it's worth thinking about trying to reach all the habitats if you're there for a few days, because you will get different birds in different places. The Schuster Trail is just above the visitor center. It's a short trail that walks right out to the open water of Lake Erie. Despite it being a short trail, because it cuts perpendicular, all the warblers cross it, and it's a fantastic place to increase your snake count and your warbler count, and really any other kind of bird. Here's another bird that's acting atypically. The yellow-throated warbler is a canopy bird, but this bird is at eye level, literally on the trail, not even a foot from the trail, literally on the trail. And he's just hanging out and eating and not worrying about being photographed. That's a spectacular bird that we very rarely get near Ottawa. There was one in Gatineau last year that I chased but did not see. Then just north of the Schuster Trail is Tilden Woods. This is a wet forest with, and it bounds onto some fields. And in the forest, you get some spectacular birds like this gorgeous Acadian flycatcher. This is a bird that will sit still and let people watch it sometimes, but their habitat is usually so dark and so far off the beaten path that we don't run into them very often. Then if we go really far north, does anyone know what this bird is? So this is a black tern, and it lives up to its name, and it breeds on little floating mats and mud and vegetation out in the marsh boardwalk. I highly recommend anyone who can do the marsh boardwalk at dawn at least once. The sunrise over Lake Erie is spectacular, just like it is at the tip. These are the 2 locations with a spectacular sunrise. But also, this is a decent spot to spot a variety of snakes and turtles and a stunning number of swallows. And I particularly like that occasionally you run into a possum out here. I don't have any pictures of opossum because I've never taken a good picture, because I've only ever seen them in the dark or at dawn. But they're a very cool animal. And they don't see very well, so sometimes they will walk quite close to you before getting skittish. So to get to past the boardwalk, it takes a canoe. You can rent one there. That's probably worth doing because there's all kinds of least bittern and other birds out in the marsh. There's breeding swans, breeding geese. It's a spectacular boardwalk. I don't think I've ever been anywhere with more common yellow throats than the marsh boardwalk. And across yeah.
Just an FYI, if you do plan to take a canoe out past the boardwalk, please realize that the wind is a lot heavier further out. And unless you're a good, strong paddler, you may not make it back in.
Excellent point. And across from the Marsh Boardwalk is the Northwest Beach. There's some excellent bathrooms. You got enough tours and you start to care about where the bathrooms are. If I seem obsessed, that's why. The beach is sandy. There are antlions on the beach, which is pretty cool if you've never seen one before. Also, sometimes there are chats in the bushes. So at this point, it's still sandy soil, but it's become more overgrown. There are more cedars. There are more juniper. There are more bushes and small trees. This is a good side to see olive-sided flycatcher, and possibly even a chat, although chats are jerky. You're more likely to hear one than actually see one. Also, the Hillman Marsh Conservation Area is worth a half a day for sure. If you go in the morning, the light, actually, there's no time of day you can go where the light won't be somewhat against you. But if you go in the morning and go take the trails off to the east, you might be able to look on the birds. You get a wide variety of waterfowl and shorebirds, and this is the place to go for shorebirds. And the bus for the OFNC trip will definitely go there and spend half a day. We'll take our scopes and we'll spot a wide variety of awesome shorebirds. These are short-tailed dowagers, and there's at least 2 subspecies there, but subspecies are above my pay grade.
That's short-billed dowagers, yes?
Yes, short-billed dowagers. So Hillman Marsh is just a little bit to the north of Pelee. And you think you're going to this huge wetland area, but you're really not. There are trails over on the right and on the left. But this part here, under the star, that looks like a field, is seasonally flooded specifically to attract shorebirds. It's part of a conservation effort. So we will go there and spend at least half a day and see, on a good day, a wonderful variety of shorebirds. And while we're here, we're not very far from Wheatley Harbor, which is worth a look in the evenings if you want to go check for some different shorebirds. I've seen glaucous gull there. You might get little gull. It's totally worth spending a half hour there or an hour there one night.
There once was a snowy owl on that little island that's off the point there, that little water break.
Very cool. Very cool. I don't have any good pictures of shorebirds, sorry. I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to go through the rest of the presentation first. So there are some other interesting critters that you can find at Pelee. Anyone know what this is?
Fox snake.
Yes. John obviously knows Southern Ontario. So this is an eastern fox snake, and I chose this photo because it shows that this snake is about 6 feet long, or almost 2 meters. That is a big snake by our standards. Pretty harmless. So there used to be a wide variety of snakes at Pelee. Most of them seem to be extricated. There are some really cool garter snakes there, different colors, and there's a large population. A surprising percentage are melanistic. So you see these little black snakes that turn out to be garter snakes when you get a good look at them. Other small snakes, the Kay's brown snake is fairly common there. And the eastern fox snake, while not common, I think I've seen one on most of my trips. And if one is spotted, there will be a sign in this visitor center to let you know to go look for it. And there's the 5-line skink. The young are vibrant blue and a lot easier to spot. The adults blend in much better with their environment. This is an adult. It is not a breeding male, or the cheeks would be red. But other than that, I can't tell if it's male or female. It was just a very large skink checking out a cavity, possibly for nesting purposes. And there are other interesting animals there. There are possums, and there's lots of interesting plants like mayapple. We have some mayapple near here, but I've never seen it fruit. Down there, you will find the fruit in May. sycamore trees, tulip trees, species off the Carolina forest, chickapin pine, which we don't have at all. So those three species of trees are all very interesting to look at. They draw different species to them. And it's just fun to see a very different environment. So I thought we could go through some of the target species for, and this is reset. Of course it is. Give me a second.
So while Derek is doing that, I'll just mention also that much of Point Pelee to the east of Point Pelee was all marshland previously. And they put a dike in so that the farmers could claim the land and farm on that land. There is one area just outside the park called the Onion Fields, and there's often good warblers and things along there. There is some residents do tend to get a little persnickety if there's too many people stopping like right outside their houses. So do try to only stop where the fields are.
Anyone have a favorite bird they want to look at?
Can you find it, chat?
Oh, yeah, sure. Get the one whose taxonomy is moved. Do you remember where it is?
No, I do not. They used to be a lot more, well, somewhat more common at Pelee than they are now.
Oh, here's a good one. Go ahead, Janet.
They used to show up on the trail that you were talking about earlier, the one that comes off the visitor center, the back of the visitor center parking lot. And
oh, the cactus field.
Well, they like tangles. So if you find tangles, it's like wrens. They're like wrens that they like to be in tangled bushes. Yeah.
So here's a bird that I've only seen once at Pelee and once in Toronto. It's pretty hard to see. And you will never see it sitting out in the open like this. I don't know how this photo was taken. But it is an honest-to-God orange sparrow. And instead of flying, if it's hanging out in the grass, and if it sees someone, it's going to run away through the grass. But it's worth knowing the sounds.
So Derek, we do have a list of birds in the chat, by the way, now.
Oh, yeah? Let's see. See, that sounds a lot like a grassland bird. Sounds a little bit like savanna, a little bit like grasshopper, very insect-like. If you hear that, stop and look in the short grass. And you'll see a little orange and black sparrow running through the grass, and it's a spectacular bird. We've got a list in the chat.
Yeah. Heather's put in Dick Sissel, a bird which you know well.
A bird which I am well acquainted with.
So Dick Sissel is the first one there.
All right.
I'm sorry, Sambath, snowy owls aren't usually there.
The wrong time of year.
Yes. They showed up at, there was one that showed up at Wheatley Harbor one time. Could have been a sick bird or a young bird or something, but it stayed there right through May.
Oh, and now it's back to my list, which doesn't have Dick Sissel on it. So we're extremely unlikely to see a Dick Sissel. It looks like a house sparrow with some yellow and a huge bill, but there just isn't habitat for it. It's possible one could sit down and spend an afternoon in the sparrow field or the cactus field, but honestly, they're more likely to keep going to get into the agricultural lands to the north of Pelee. All right, so magically, I have my list of birds that we're more likely to see that we don't see here. American white pelican, we do see sometimes here, usually on their way to Montreal, and usually 4 at a time and briefly, but they do sometimes stop into Shenandoah Rapids. And they sound awesome. Yeah. Hey, dinosaurs. They sound like dinosaurs. See them flying through the air, you think you're looking at a pterosaur. Here's one that we don't even need to know the calls. This bird cannot be mistaken with anything else in North America. And you might think, well, maybe it could be mistaken with a fork-tailed flycatcher, but it's an enormous bird. It just fills the sky with those big wings and that long tail. And I hope we see one again. For raptors, if we get a message about a raptor and we're near the visitor center, we'll run out into the visitor center parking lot because it's one of the very few places you can see the sky. There is a new tower. Well, it's not new. It's been closed for 5 years, but it's been fixed. So the tower is open for raptor watching this year. So we may see some more raptors. But if you're going on your own, definitely go up the tower and watch for raptors, especially late in the day. Here's another bird that we never get in Ottawa. A beautiful kite. This one is much smaller. And in case of both of these kites, they're overshoots, but they may spend the day running up and down. What I've seen before for both species is they spent the day flying up and down the narrow strip of land over the peninsula. They'd get to the agricultural lands and turn back. They'd get to the tip and turn back north. So it made for a chance for many people to see them. All right, Bonaparte's gull with a charming song. So we get lots of Bonaparte's gulls in small numbers. You can get one with the underwing. There we go. See that nice white underwing? Remember that. So the only reason I'm showing you the Bonapartes, although we'll definitely see bigger flocks of them there, is to compare it to the little gull. The little gull is just a tiny bit smaller than the Bonapartes, enough that you can tell if they're standing and might be hard to tell if they're flying. But see that dark underwing? That is diagnostic. And in the right lighting conditions, you can see that dark underwing a kilometer away. So it's actually, if they're there, it's not that hard to spot a little gull. In Niagara, it can be hard because there are thousands of gulls, thousands of Bonapartes, and you're trying to pick out a little gull. But where we're going, there'll be dozens, possibly 100, but no enormous flocks of Bonapartes. So if there's a little gull, it'll pop out for us. Common tern, which is quite common in Ottawa. Note the red bill with a black tip and the gray primaries. And the only reason I'm really showing you that one is so you can torment yourself trying to identify a Forster's gull, sorry. Forster's tern, wow. Forster's tern. Sounds very similar, but you can see the beak and legs are both more orange. The head is very similar. And the underwing is not as different as I'd like. There's one here with an overwing. Here with the overwing, you can kind of see the primaries are very light, but that's not the best. There, you can see the primaries on the right wing, the bird's right wing, are very light colored in the front, the leading edges, whereas in the common tern, they're gray. If you're good, you can spot that while they're flying. It's not I don't find that one of the easier IDs. Here's another bird that we have here that you will not see very much, but is very easy to hear in the carpils. Hard to spot, easy to hear. This is a pretty big bird and it seems bigger than it is. Looks like it has a tiny mouth, but the mouth runs all the way back to the eyes. So it actually has an enormous mouth. But what we often get at Pelee is a chuckbull's widow. And the sound is subtly different. Chuckbull's widow. And this is a huge bird. It weighs more than twice what a these whippoorwill ways. And it just looks enormous. And that head is stunning, how big that head is from front to back. And it's just a beautiful bird, very hard to see, but if it goes flying over Pelee at night, it's easy to hear. And there's one that's been returning for years.
There was one year actually where we had all of the goat suckers, all three of them. So it was quite interesting.
Oh, that was a sweet day. We saw all three of them in the daylight. Yeah. Here's a sound worth getting to know, the Acadian flycatcher. This is one case where my photo is better than these photos. It's in these photos, they're kind of muted. It's coming across as very gray, but in the field, they always appear green, possibly because of the green leaves and the green light where they like to hang out in the dark. They may not actually be olive. They may just look olive because of the lighting. These do go to Gatineau Park. I've seen them there. The expert birders have pointed them out, but I haven't found one in Ottawa. Worm-eating warbler. This is just to torment ourselves. It's a spectacular bird. And it's got one of those dry rattle trills. It's got very little angle between the huge beak and the forehead. It's got that striped forehead. We don't have anything that looks remotely like it. If you see one, you'll ID it right away. If you ID one, hundreds of people come running to look at it. I've never seen as many people line up to look at any bird as this one. Now, here's the bird that everybody goes to Pelee to see. And believe it or not, the color is even more striking against the shadows of the swamp, and when it runs into bright sunlight, it's just gorgeous golden bird. And it's got sort of a sweet call, but very insistent, very loud echoing through the swamp. Here's a spectacular. Oh, and that is a sweet call. If you've never seen one before, you might be confused that it's a Canada warbler or a hooded warbler, but look at that bright yellow throat, the black coming down the side of the face, the black cap, and the olive green coloring. This really is a green bird. Looks like nothing else around here. Always appears green, yellow, and black in any lighting conditions. That's just a gorgeous bird, and I feel wonderful when I see one. Hooded warbler is a little more common than the Kentucky. The males are easy to ID because unlike the previous, it's got a yellow, black, and green bird, just like the Kentucky, and it's got a black cap. But the black throat is a giveaway compared to the Kentucky, which has a strong yellow throat. It's got a lovely song too. This is a bird you'll see down low. Same with the Kentucky, you'll actually see it walking across the floor, walking across the ground. Here's another of the most desired birds at Pelee. This one's a male. You can see the black, between the eyes and the bill, top of the lower. I don't think I've ever heard one singing. Oh yes, I have at Burntlands. I haven't heard them singing at Pelee. So what a lot of the warblers will do is they will land in the morning, and they may do some micro-sleeping throughout the day. But generally, they're going to spend the whole day moving slowly north on the peninsula, feeding as they go, which means no matter where you're going to go, you're going to see different birds throughout the day. So it's worth covering a variety of trails on any given day. Back to beautiful cerulean. Yeah, try and tell that apart from the worm eating. Although it's ascending, so it could be confused with Perula, really. It's got that black ring across the throat, or it's actually supposedly blue, is diagnostic. If you see that, you know you've got a male. The males are cerulean blue. The females are aquamarine. You can find one. Not a lot of females. Females are getting neglected in these photos. A lot of the early biologists were male. Explains a lot. Not a female. Wow. Okay, there's a female in the nest, but the lighting's terrible. They really are an aquamarine, a green-blue color, which you can't tell from that photo. But if you see them even in bad light. And the yellow-throated warbler. That is a spectacular bird, supposedly a canopy bird, but here it again, it seems to be down low. It crawls along the trunk of a tree, which you don't see a lot of warblers do. It can't be confused with anything else. It looks a bit like the other black-throated. It looks a bit like black-throated gray, but it's got that bright yellow throat. Once you see that, you know you've got a yellow-throated warbler. Not to be confused with the common yellow-throated, which are common. That's the list of birds that I had prepared. Now if I can get rid of that list that didn't want to go away before.
So Derek, all you've managed to do for me here is panic me that I don't know all my bird songs.
Well, there's no reason to panic. First of all, you know all the Ottawa bird songs, which means if you hear something that you don't know, you know it's time to get serious and look around and find that bird and try to ID it visually. Try and get a recording of it. Audio recordings are good for ID. Photographs are fantastic for ID. Video's okay for ID. All right, so give me some birds from the list, Janet, in the chat.
Well, I think you've covered most of them. You've shown all of the ones here. Well, bluebirds you haven't shown, and they do happen. Indigo bunting was mentioned.
Indigo bunting and bluebirds are common bluebirds of Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to get the indigo bunting. Yeah, I've seen flocks of them walking across the ground at Pelee, so it is much easier to get them there. Here you can get them. Greens Creek is quite good for indigo bunting. You can't mistake the males for anything else. Those black wings and the beautiful blue bird. And it's just adult female, that's harder. And I've seen adult females look just rusty with no color at all in the fall. I've also seen juveniles looking bright yellow, same shape, no blue, no rust, just yellow. So very variable, but the males have those black. You see some black and gray from primaries, a bit of dark gray charcoal on the back, and that blue color, and the big seed-eating bill. And if you go to Greens Creek and walk along and look south or north onto the telephone wires and listen for the song.
Yeah, just be aware that sometimes those indigo buntings, when they're a little bit far away or if they're in shadow, they'll look black almost.
Oh, that's a good point, Janet. But fortunately, they like to sing in the sun.
Yes, but when they're not singing, Derek, they'll sit in the shade and make you think they're not them.
Oh, when they're not singing, I'll never see them. So it doesn't matter. Sorry. I don't really mean that. All right, there's your dick thistle. It looks like a gigantic house sparrow with a gigantic gray bill that's much bigger than a house sparrow bill. And it's got all these yellow highlights. At a distance, they blend in with house sparrows. And in fact, they will, if one of them gets lost in the fall in Eastern Ontario, they will winter with house sparrows, which is what happened in my backyard. I had one coming to my feeder. And I don't know how long it was there before I saw it, but when I saw it through the binoculars with the yellow, I knew what it was. But until then, it was just another house sparrow. But it is, when you get a good look at it in good light, and it's a beautiful bird. Simple call, but much much more musical than a house sparrow. And they're not even remotely related to house sparrow. The convergent evolution where they're both grain eaters and they look a lot alike. Chat, you wanted, Janet. So when I started birding, the yellow-breasted chat was considered a warbler. It was considered a weird warbler, often a group by itself, but a warbler. Now it's not even considered a warbler. It's got its own genes. It's a spectacular bird. You never see it that clearly. You can hear it for an hour calling from, as Janet said earlier, a tumble of weeds or a pile of bushes, especially something that's been cut up. They love wood piles and brush piles. And they'll call from them for hours and you may not see them at all. And they're mimics, so their songs are very hard to ID and pinpoint. So this is one of the birds you probably have to learn the quality of the sound because the individual songs will all be different. So that's spectacular. It did blue jays and gnat catchers, and other birds I don't even recognize. It did a woodpecker. It just makes a song out of other birds' calls, and so every male is going to sound different.
So one of the birds that you see frequently, their nest anyway on the along the roadway, especially down closer to the visitor center, is the Baltimore Orioles. But they also have orchard orioles there as well.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Blue-gray gnatcatcher is one you should learn the sound of. They're everywhere. They're smaller than chickadees, although they've got a really long tail. And they'll nest right next to the trail in little lichen-covered nests. It's spectacular. They're so tiny. The bird's head and tail stick straight up out of the nest. The nests are so small. All right, that's a song. There's the call. You'll recognize that in the forest. Nothing else sounds like it. Yeah, very squeaky. Have we covered all the species in the chat, Janet?
Just a second. Yeah, I think so. The ones that aren't around here, black tern, we do have here along waterways. Yeah, those scarlet tanager is being asked for, but we do get those here too.
Yeah, a really good place for scarlet tanager is Jack Pine. There'll be several pairs claiming territory between the two boardwalks.
So John Fraser's asking if you've gotten Henslow sparrow in the last few years at the Sparrow Meadow.
It hasn't been there any of the years that I've been there, but I've only been there 5 years. Here's an orchard oriole. It's very similar pattern to our oriole, but notice that beautiful brown color. No, didn't mean to do that. Beautiful, beautiful color. And then the juveniles, just like any oriole juveniles, kind of hard to pick out. What is that? What am I looking at? But the males are stunning, really black. This is making me realize I don't think I've seen any female. I wonder if the males there are overshooting. No, they must be nesting. There's too many in the summer. Anything else, Janet, or we should open up to questions?
I think you could open up to questions. One question that has just come up was whether or not you're going to be discussing the details of the trip, of the OFNC trip tonight at all.
Oh, well, I can discuss a bit of it. The itinerary is going to be sent out to you in the next couple of see, our deadline to check the itinerary was the 10th. So Martha will be sending that list, I think, in the next week with details of every stop. I can see if I have it. It's going to be very similar to last year. We're going to take a day and drive down on the 6th. And then if we have time, we'll stop somewhere along the way, like Oshawa Second Marsh or Cranberry Marsh to stretch our legs and count a little birding. Then we'll get into Pelee to the inn, and Martha will check us all in. I think she's booked a room for a question and answer session that evening, or otherwise people just walk down to the beach. There'll be shorebirds and swallows and things along the beach. The next day we're birding in Pelee, so that's Thursday. We're birding all day in Pelee. Friday we are going to Rondo, and then we're coming back to Leamington for supper at, I think, Freddy's. And then Saturday we're birding again at Pelee and Hillman Marsh. So that's when we'll get our shorebirds. So we'll have a full day and a half in Pelee and a full day at Rondo. There are some specialties and really good photographic opportunities in Rondo. I think it's going to be a good trip. And then the trip back, there's an option to stop somewhere for a walk, but that'll be time dependent, depending on how many hours of the bus driver's time we've burned and how tired people are. And my experience is coming back, people are tired on Sunday. Does that answer the question? I don't have the real details in front of me.
Yeah, one thing that people should know is Martha does a superb job of organizing things and thinking about people's comfort. So, you know, she plans a lot of rest stops along the way so that as old folks that can't hold it for very long can make it. She's just superb at trying to make sure that everybody has a wonderful time.
Yeah, she's fantastic. There'll be an opportunity to return to the bus at lunchtime every day. So there will be a buffet for lunch for those who buy into it, by which we mean cold cuts and veggies. Simple but nourishing and convenient. And chance to change out your gear or equipment at the bus. But I recommend a little backpack, something small make sure you have a rain jacket and a water bottle. And you don't even have to buy a plastic water bottle. You could just bring your own water bottle and fill it up at the visitor center. And if not, Martha will have extra water on the bus because she does care about us. Oh, the mornings are early. I think we're loading onto the bus at 5:30 to try and get to the first tram on the morning that we're going to Pelee. Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get there. I don't think we should go to the tip on Saturday because I think that will be a nightmare. I think we should just spend the day walking and enjoying Pelee. But we'll see what people want to do.
Yeah, Nigel's asking if you move around as a group or break down into smaller groups.
Oh, excellent question. Yeah, so there's going to be more than 30 of us there. So we have 4 leaders. The 4 leaders will be all active at the same time. So we'll break, I don't know how many people we are, 36 participants, plus the leaders and Martha. So we'll break down into 4 groups. And Martha will assign them the night before. She'll give you some ability to move around, but she's going to try and set up the groups by pacing. So some people like slow birding. Some people are twitchers and they want to maximize the number of birds they get in a single day. Whether you're walking fast or slow, I mean, we should have at least one day where we get over 100 species in a single day. unless the weather is really against us. But, she'll try to put it so people don't want to walk fast or too far. They go in one group and the group just moves slowly. And other people are feeling full of pep and vinegar. They can go faster and further. Any other questions? This is my first time trying to put this presentation together, so I'm sure I missed things.
There's a lot of things that you'll see more of there just because they are migrating through. Also, things, some of the woodpeckers that are a little less common here, such as the red-bellied and the red-headed woodpeckers you'll see. There's a location where an eastern screech owl normally kind of hangs out and has a nest, so you may see that. Yeah, there's just a lot of things that go through there.
If you're planning your own trip in the future, you can actually camp at Camp Henry. It costs as much as a hotel, but they're very nice yurts or yurt-like buildings with power, and you're right inside the park, and you'll hear a screech owl sing all night long. And there'll be possums on the way to the bathroom, and there's barbecues, and you get to skip the 6 a.m. lineup at the front gate. You're already You're already a 10-minute walk from the tram. So if you're ever there by yourself or in a small group, I would highly recommend camping at Camp Henry. But be aware, you have to book it in January. Pretty much the same day the booking's open. We're coming up to an hour. If there's no questions.
No, I'm not seeing any more questions coming up here, Derek. It's just know your warblers is what I'd say. Plus, so many of the birds flying through, and don't forget to check if you're on the western side walking back from the tip, check over the rocks on the side. I mean, don't kill yourselves by walking on them or anything, but the birds will often, when they land, they're so tired that they're just going to start walking up, and they'll often walk on the shore side. And the wind does make somewhat of a difference. And if it does rain, don't worry. As long as you're not one of those guys with the super high-powered cameras that are going to be upset that you're that you can't get a clean shot. The birds at Pelee, I used to live near there, and when it rains, the birds will stay down low. They're not going to be up flying away. Yeah.
If it rains really badly, you can get a fallout.
Yeah.
So even bad weather can work in our favor.
So Sam Bath is asking about barn owls. Do you want to address barn owls for everybody, Derek?
Sure. So the last time I checked, there were 13 breeding pairs of barn owls in Ontario. I don't know where any of them are, but they're probably all in Essex County. We will not see a barn owl in Ontario. They are rare and they are suppressed. People are protecting them and they don't let people know about them. There's like incredibly tiny chance that a barn owl would choose to disperse and we could see it in Pelee, but it's just very unlikely.
Nigel would like to know if people are supposed to bring their scopes or if the leaders are bringing them.
Okay, so that's a good question. I would recommend you bring your scope and leave it on the bus, because when we go to Hillman Marsh, you're going to want your own scope. I will be bringing my scope. All 4 of the leaders will bring their scopes, and we will carry them on the daily walks in case there's distant birds that we want to get people on. But we're going to try and see a lot of birds, so I'm not going to be pulling out the scope all the time. If you really want the scope all the time, bring the scope. But I would recommend bring it down for the trip and leave it in the bus, except when you go to Hillman. At Hillman, it's worth its weight in gold, because those birds, those shorebirds and ducks are usually not close.
Okay. So any last questions from anybody? No? Okay. So again, as Derek said, you'll be getting those going on the trip will be getting their information in the next little while. I hope everybody has a really great trip. Pelee has to be one of my very favorite places to be in May. So do enjoy yourself. Remember to put your bug spray on, and or a bug net sometimes if you're going into really buggy areas. Yeah, so have a great time and take care.
Thanks, Janet.
Thank you. Bye now.